This Ukrainian paratrooper is in the process of cooking a grenade to throw it into a basement where Russian soldiers are hiding. The Russians beat him to it and throw a grenade of their own, which lands right next to him. However, he demonstrates lightning-fast reflexes. First, he throws his grenade into the basement, then quickly picks up the Russian grenade and throws it in as well. Speaking of grenades, this Ukrainian soldier from the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade is also preparing a grenade to throw at Russian positions during a battle, reportedly taking place in the Donetsk region. However, just as he takes 2 steps forward and exposes himself for a brief second, the Russians open fire on him. He is hit twice, but incredibly, his helmet saves him. The force of the impact knocks him to the ground, but his buddy quickly steps in and helps him up again. Even more impressively, all of this happens while he firmly grips the already armed grenade in his hands the entire time without letting go. This calmness and dedication definitely deserve your like. This Russian soldier attempts a bold move to stop an incoming Ukrainian FPV drone. He tries to take it down with the stock of his rifle. However, the attempt fails. Another Russian soldier also tries to intercept an incoming FPV drone, this time with a determined thrust of his rifle barrel forward. But this attempt fails as well. While there are several documented cases of successfully fending off FPV drones by throwing rifles at them, using them as impact weapons is almost always doomed to fail unless the explosives on the drones malfunction. That's why it's no surprise that this attempt to stop a drone with sticks also fails. Although we have already seen countless cases like this, such interception methods continue to be attempted as last-ditch efforts, mostly without success. The best approach remains to shoot down the drones before they can get too close, as seen in these examples. Quick reactions and precise aiming are crucial to neutralizing the threat effectively. Every second counts when facing an incoming danger, making swift action essential. Another option is to leave the area where the drones are operating immediately, but even with vehicles, it can be very difficult to outrun them, something the driver of this golf cart quickly realizes as he is chased by an FPV drone. He abandons the vehicle, hoping the drone will strike it instead of following him, but he bets wrong. The drone stays close on his heels. It directly tackles him in the back, but it seems to fail to detonate, only knocking the soldier off his feet. A lone survivor of a failed Russian mechanized assault crawls out from under an abandoned vehicle. Above him, a drone hovers as he panics and swats at it. Luckily for him, he gets the chance to surrender to the drone. His capitulation is accepted, and with his hands raised, he is guided by the drone toward Ukrainian lines. A Ukrainian soldier uses a man-portable anti-air defense system to shoot down a Russian Su-25 jet. The missile's impact is not visible, but we can see the low-flying plane crashing to the ground. It erupts into a fireball. These scenes are from turrets, and the low altitude indicates that the planes are providing close air support. A pair of Russian helicopters arrives at the crash site to rescue the pilot of the downed jet. One of the helicopters lands, but the Ukrainians do not want to miss this opportunity. They immediately deploy an FPV drone to strike the helicopter on the ground. However, it appears that Russian electronic warfare systems are heavily active in the area, causing severe interference with the drone's connection. As a result, all attempts to hit the helicopter fail. However, the mere possibility of being struck by an incoming drone is enough to make the helicopter take off abruptly, even leaving personnel and the pilot behind on the ground. Another failed attempt to hit the helicopter. Tasked with bringing a small Russian assault group to the zero line, this Russian tank also becomes the center of attention for Ukrainian drone crews, who stalk it as it moves through the open. The Russian soldiers on top try to shoot down the first FPV drone targeting their transport, but their efforts are unsuccessful and the drone hits its target. While it doesn't look like the hit penetrated the tank's armor, it seems to have damaged the engine, causing the tank to stop in the middle of the field. The soldiers immediately jump off and scatter, leaving the vehicle behind to get out of the open. A second FPV drone is dispatched to hit the tank, this time from the front. It appears that the tank was penetrated as it begins to catch fire. The blaze continues to grow, a strong indicator that this hit was critical. With the same task as the tank in the previous clip, this Russian BTR charges straight forward while covering its own advance with its machine cannon. It reaches its destination, where it unloads the infantry who are already being watched by Ukrainian drones. What happens next cannot be shown on YouTube and is only included in the Telegram edit. This is truly an incredible video capturing the final moments of an abandoned Russian BTR. The armored personnel carrier is struck by a kamikaze drone, triggering a malfunction that causes its cannon to fire uncontrollably in a wild, erratic manner. The impact likely sent the gun into an uncontrolled firing loop. With no crew in sight to intervene, The BTR's cannon continues to fire randomly until it runs out of ammunition. The eerie sight of a ghostly, unmanned machine blindly firing into the battlefield serves as a haunting reminder of the chaos and destruction that modern warfare brings. This Russian tank drives straight into a ditch, flipping forward and getting stuck, rendering it immobile. If you're wondering how this could have happened, here's the explanation for you. First, the visibility for tank crews is extremely limited, making it not uncommon for obstacles to be overlooked. However, the key factor in this case, once again, is FPV drones. After a direct frontal hit, most likely taking out the crew, the tank keeps rolling forward until it comes to a standstill inside the ditch, crater, or whatever you want to call it. From there, it is systematically targeted by Ukrainian FPV and Thermite drones, striking it repeatedly until the disabled vehicle begins to engulf in flames. With each hit, the damage worsens, and soon, thick smoke starts rising as the fire spreads inside the tank. This Chinese desert cross buggy is packed with Russian soldiers. Their goal is to capture Ukrainian territory. The soldiers notice a Ukrainian drone following them and take aim. However, their bigger problem lies on the ground as the vehicle hits a mine. The other vehicles involved in the attack continue their advance. One of the soldiers from the previously destroyed vehicle tries to jump onto another vehicle, but it shows no intention of stopping for the Russian and simply drives on. Shortly after, it looks like a Ukrainian FPV drone strikes the vehicle. A Russian MRAP, also part of the attack, suffers a frontal hit, severely damaging its front left tire. Visibly damaged and heavily impaired in speed but still operational, it continues its drive. The Ukrainians promptly strike the vehicle in the same spot again. Heavily hit, it takes a turn but is struck again. By now, the driver has likely lost control of the vehicle and it begins to circle uncontrollably. Its repetitive, almost hypnotic motion contrasts eerily with the chaos of battle, as if stuck in an endless loop. As it comes to a standstill, a full squad of infantry suddenly emerges from the side but is immediately targeted from above. The soldiers flee the scene and, in an attempt to escape the Ukrainian drones, are instinctively drawn to a nearby settlement, hoping to find shelter. Ukrainian drone operators, however, predict their movement and are already waiting for them. The drone, visible in the middle left of the image, shows just how completely monitored and exposed this area already is. Now you can see it on the right. This Russian assault in the Kursk region did not go as planned. Their armored column maneuvered directly into the range of Ukrainian Javelin teams, which picked off the vehicles one by one. The Javelin launcher is a truly top-tier weapon when it comes to engaging armored targets, even at distances that are considered long by infantry standards. Designed as a fire-and-forget system, the Javelin utilizes infrared guidance to track and destroy its target with high precision. One of its most lethal features is its top-down attack mode, which allows the missile to strike where enemy armor is weakest, typically the turret or engine deck of a tank. This makes it especially effective against modern armored vehicles, which are heavily protected on the front and sides but far more vulnerable from above. In October and early November 2024, Russian forces reclaim approximately half of the territory that Ukrainian forces had previously seized during their offensive. Despite this, as of February 7, 2025, Ukrainian forces launched a new, albeit limited-scale, offensive southeast of Sudzha. Initial reports indicate that Ukrainian troops have penetrated up to 5 kilometers beyond Russian defensive lines. Here, Russian soldiers engage Ukrainian troops in urban combat within the old industrial zone of Toretsk. What they don't realize is that their exit has already been sealed off by Ukrainian FPV drones. The drones pin the Russians in place, forcing them to remain inside the building. Then, a tank from the 28th Mechanized Brigade arrives and begins its work, relentlessly shelling the building. Carefully, it moves back and forth while keeping the Russians pinned down with heavy fire. Despite all efforts, Russian forces have managed to capture the majority of Toretsk, including the industrial zone. However, Ukrainian forces continue to fight back, launching a series of raids into the area using tanks, Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, and MRAPs. On screen, you can see one of these raids being conducted by the Ukrainian military. After a tank and a Bradley IFV softened up the Russian positions with direct fire, a Ukrainian storm unit arrived on the scene in an MRAP and launched an assault on the building. Upon entering, they moved swiftly to the structure, systematically clearing the building with suppressive fire and grenades to eliminate any possible resistance. This helmet camera footage shows a Ukrainian Humvee during multiple fire and harassment missions. The mobility and machine gun of the Humvee are used to quickly fire at the enemy and then swiftly change position. Its ability to rapidly reposition enables hit and run attacks, making it difficult for the enemy to respond effectively. Additionally, the Humvee can deploy troops directly into the fight, providing them with cover and mobility. Soldiers can dismount, engage enemy positions, and then retreat just as quickly if needed. During one of these missions, a Russian soldier was captured and placed in the trunk of the Humvee. However, I can only show that on Telegram. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that this helmet camera footage, which appears to come from the commander of a Ukrainian BMP-1, is the first of its kind that we've seen. The video shows the soldier directing the BMP-1 while simultaneously engaging Russian positions. As the BMP-1 fires its main cannon, the commander also joins the fight, using his rifle while continuing to coordinate the vehicle. That makes sense for several reasons. First, the visibility inside a BMP-1, especially given its age, is extremely limited. A clear overview of the battlefield can only really be achieved from outside the hatch. Second, its electronics and optics are severely outdated, and its main cannon, which lacks a stabilizer, is highly inaccurate when firing on the move. It can really only be used with any degree of accuracy when fired from a stationary position. Given these limitations, it makes perfect sense for the commander to position himself outside the hatch to maintain situational awareness, direct fire, and, if necessary, support the fight himself. If this helmet camera footage of a Ukrainian soldier using a German MG3 machine gun in defense during a Russian attack on his position doesn't give off Eastern Front World War II vibes, then I don't know what does. The soldier fires toward the advancing Russians from within a forest filled with shattered, barren trees, scarred by war and relentless artillery fire. It looks like his gun jams, forcing him to adjust the belt before he can resume firing, briefly disrupting the flow of fire. However, he quickly gets it back in action and returns to the fight without hesitation. According to the source of this video, this engagement took place in the Serebryansky forest, an area that has seen intense fighting, with both sides battling for control amid the war-torn landscape. The dense, devastated woodland provides cover but also turns most engagements into a brutal close-quarters struggle. Russian sources release quite interesting, yet highly debatable, footage showing a Russian special forces assault on a supposed Ukrainian trench somewhere in a snow-covered forest. During the initial phase of the attack, the trench is heavily bombarded with explosive weapons, as the sheer number of explosions suggests. I honestly do not know what they are using here, perhaps thermobaric grenades, but since I have never seen anything like this before, I completely understand why some Ukrainian commentators claim the footage is staged. What definitely isn't staged, however, is the fact that Russia has, for some time now, only known one direction on the front, forward. They are currently closing in on Pokrovsk and have had successes in other cities, such as Toretsk. Recently, their advances have slowed down significantly, but they still gain ground every day. So much for the claims that I would hide such facts. The video also shows the capture of Ukrainian soldiers, but I have to blur it for YouTube and cannot show it here in its entirety. To see the full footage, you have to go to my Telegram. However, looking at the overall setup and scenery, I completely understand the doubts some people have. Feel free to discuss it in the comments section. This Georgian volunteer, serving in the Ukrainian forces, lost his right arm in combat in 2023. Now, he is back, a cyborg in the truest sense of the word, because where his right arm once was, he now has a robotic prosthesis. His comrade jokingly calls him Terminator, but cyborg is probably the more accurate term. A fun fact, during the Ukraine war in 2014, Ukrainian soldiers were nicknamed cyborgs, while Russian and pro-Russian fighters were dubbed orcs. One way or another, these images show that we are truly living in the future. This abandoned Russian tank, reinforced with makeshift sheds and roof protection, becomes the perfect testing ground for a Ukrainian Thermite drop. We see how a drone carefully lands on the tank's roof, precisely placing a Thermite charge. As the charge ignites, it begins to burn through the tank's armor, slowly eating its way inside. The intense heat and chemical reaction demonstrate the devastating effectiveness of Thermite against such improvised defenses. But even traditional drone drops are often enough to effectively dispose of abandoned vehicles in a cost-effective manner. In this case, we can even see a larger drone hovering above the vehicle during the drop. The math is simple: the bigger the explosive, the greater the destruction. This effect is naturally even stronger when the vehicle is still loaded with ammunition or explosive material, as seen here.